Hello everyone, it is Joe here from Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. If you're looking for PTCGO codes, including the stuff from Pokemon Go, make sure you check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your order using that code Omnipoke. For today's video, we're going to be giving my first impressions of Incandescent Arcana. We've got all 68 cards revealed. This is going to be part of our Silver Tempest November set, as well as some other cards from Paradigm Trigger, which we don't yet know. But yeah, some interesting stuff. We'll jump all the way down to the trainers first, then go back through the Pokemon. Because it's the first impressions, we'll be looking at artwork. We're going to be looking at cards in terms of how they perform in GLC and possibly Cube format, as well as the standard format. So let's jump into it. We're going to get some reprints. First of all, we're getting E-Switch back. These are important cards to bear in mind because, of course, we're expecting rotation come Jan-Feb time. So getting E-Switch, important card. Capture Aroma is the first new card we're looking at. It's an item card that lets you flip a coin. If heads, you get an evolution. If tails, you get a basic. And both those come from deck to hand. And then you shuffle your deck afterwards. Probably not going to be good enough because it's clearly not reliable. If you see this in the first turn, you feel terrible about hitting heads. If you see it, on turn 2 or 3, you really want it to not be tails. So, just when you can't trust the coin flip, it's going to be a bad card. But I feel like this could be a card for Cube, at least, and definitely not a GLC card. We get the Switch reprints, and then we also get Emergency Jelly, a tool card, with an interesting artwork going on here that says, at the end of each turn, if the Pokemon this tool is attached to has 30 or less remaining hit points, you can heal 120 damage from that Pokemon, then discard the Emergency Jelly. So it's like a last chance potion, but on a tool card, so you can sort of proactively place it there. It might make your opponent play differently and like launch different attacks into you, just you don't trigger the jelly. In some instances, but I don't feel like this is a strong enough effect anyway. I think we've found that Hyper Potion is like a reasonable enough card with DT already in format to do the job for us, so I don't think we're going to necessarily need this sort of card. We even have Fantina coming out in Lost Origin as well, which can serve a similar role of negating 120 damage, so I don't think this is a tool card we'll be seeing much of, even in tanking decks. We're getting Judge back, and we also have a Serena supporter card, which is very, very strong. You have a choose one of 2 options effect here. You can discard up to 3 cards from your hand, and then draw until you have 5. So similar to like a Sightseer effect, which wasn't that strong of a draw supporter, but does have some upside with discard synergy. But the second option allows you to switch one of your opponent's benched Pokemon V with their active Pokemon. So really it's just a more flexible boss's orders in a lot of ways, right? Because bosses obviously most of the time taking multi-prize targets, and while we still only have Vs in format, this is a clear upgrade to boss in almost every way. The only time it's a downside is when you're up against 1 prize decks, or if you feel like you'll be like wanting to knock out Big Barrel or other like engine Pokemon potentially. So the Gust is currently, at least, pre the EX era that we know about. Currently, this is as good as Boss, but with some draw on top. So it means, rather than just playing 4 copies of Boss in your deck, we might be starting to see a split of, like, 2 Boss, 1 Serena, because the Serena is almost always getting the same gusting effect for you, but has the extra flexibility of not being a dead card in the opening stages, where you'd rather use other supporters like Marnie and Research in most cases, but if you're in a pinch, you have this card, and it's far better than a panic boss's orders just to pass, Just bring something up and trap it. Instead, try and see some extra cards in your opening stages. So I think this is going to see a lot of play, at least until the EX era comes around. Seems very good. It'll certainly eat into boss's orders counts in some decks, based on like how they try and create prize maps and what decks are most popular in the formats. I feel pretty confident this could completely overtake Boss, actually, which is a scary thought because Boss is clearly one of the best cards in the game. But yeah, this is insane. It's clearly very bad for GLC because you can't gust the V Pokemon and then it's just a worse Sightseer. And it's also not very good for Cube. But yeah, really awesome card for the standard format for a small window of time because it states V Pokemon, of course, as well. So yeah, you're bringing up and punishing Vs from the bench. That's the big takeaway, with some upside as well. So then we have Furisode Girl here, that is a supporter that allows you to search your deck for a basic, put it directly to your bench, then shuffle your deck, and then you have the choice if you would like to switch that Pokemon with your active. Really interesting. It has big upside in certain cases for slapping a switch onto a Ball Search card, and of course we have insanely good Ball Search in format right now, so it does come with some stiff competition, but there are specific cards that do want to get themselves into the active position pretty quickly. Think about Sobble's Keep Calling, or Gossifler's Call for Family for 3, or even Call for Goons from a Hisuian Basculin, or you could have some good end-of-turn effects, like using Mew, or using Snorlax, getting it straight into the active and getting some additional value. So there are some perks to this card. I think right now it's probably not going to be strong enough, because we just have naturally such insane Ball Search. And I think in general you would just rather play like Scoop Up Nets and other pivot options in general for most of the cards that I was just sort of suggesting. But an interesting card, certainly, and may have some merits along the lines, because it's a very interesting text that we have here. So a cool one to have in the card pool. Then we have Wallace that says, draw 3. Your opponent may draw a card. If they do, you draw an extra. You go up to 4 cards. Very bad card. We're basically never playing this. DTE reprints, and we also get V Guard Energy, which is a very interesting colorless energy that says the Pokemon this card is attached to takes 30 less damage from your opponent's Pokemon V. Very scary text. Of course, you cannot stack this as well. That's written on the card, so you can breathe a sigh of relief. We're not going to see a Blissey reducing 120 the entire game. But still, a powerful card for the likes of Blissey, for the likes of Arceus potentially as well, that can benefit from a colorless on the attack cost. There's Hisuian Goodra that has colorless in its attack cost. So I think this becomes a 1 of, maybe 2 of maximum in decks, but you know, it competes with Capture Energy, which is always a bit rough for colorless attachments, but the effect is strong, and we know that tanking is probably an effective strategy going into the at least Lost Origins format, because we already have this Goodra V-Star. So yeah, seems like a good 1 of include in that deck, and maybe a few others as well for some reduction. I wonder if there's any cards in this set that we can take advantage of as well. As we jump back to the top and we start looking at some stuff, so we have a Scyther that can discard some energy. We have a Yanmega, which is probably too strong for Cube as well. I'm in this annoying spot now, or the format, or I guess I should say new cards being released, starting to get into this annoying spot where they're just too strong for Cube, but not good enough. Sorry, yeah, not good enough for standard, too strong for Cube. So it might be a bit of a lull, really. Like, the Yan was kind of decent, but the Yanmega's just hitting too much for the Cube format. Not good enough for GLC. We have a Superior V and V-Star. The regular V, and look at this old art as well, by the way, has Noble Light, healing 30 from each Pokemon in play, and a Solar Beam for Grass 2 colorless. You do 120. Nothing really outstanding there. And the V-Star has 270 hit points. It's a Grass type with free Retreat, which is actually a very good stat on this guy. You have the Royal Tornado for Grass and 2 colorless. You deal 190 and move any amount of energy from your Pokemon to your other Pokemon in any way that you like. Pretty strong text on the attack, actually. We've seen this before on like Guardy Sylveon, where you can just move your energies all over the place. It means that you're not necessarily giving up a bunch of energy when you're swinging with this guy, which is pretty relevant. The 190 is a pretty good baseline as well, because you can belt your way up to 220, so not a bad number and pretty flexible. I'm still a little bit concerned about having that fire weakness, because Radiant Zard, although it didn't like Barnstorm Worlds, it was still a played card, certainly, and it could easily prevent Superior from being like a higher tier threat, or could be easily countered, I guess. But we have this. We have the raw 270 hit points, which isn't that high, but of course you have the Kricketune as well you could consider. And yeah, it's a like stable output, really. And there's colorless in the attack cost, which is kind of cool. You could try the V-Guard energy as well if you really wanted to. You've also got the Coiling Star for Grass. You do 60x the amount of energy attached to this Pokemon, and then you switch with one of your benched. I think that's also pretty good. Try and protect your energy if you start Royal Tornadoing a bunch for like 2-hit KOs, then you're building your energy to a point where you can use one Coiling Star for a big 1-hit KO. I don't think the card is incredible, of course, but you can see what they're going for here. Probably just too inconsistent for the attack cost that we're going for compared to other V-Stars like Palkia and Arceus that are just far, far stronger cards. But you can see what they're going for here, and I can see people experimenting with this deck at least. We have a Lilligant, which can attach to your bench, guys. That's not going to see you play in any of these formats. We have a Radiant Pokemon, Radiant Serena. So it's a basic with 140 hit points and an attack for Grass 2 colors. You do 90 and remove all special conditions, but it's really the ability that I guess you're more interested in here. You can heal 20 from each of your Pokemon. I think this competes quite badly with Radiant Gardevoir, at least until the EX era comes out, because I think reducing damage is far more impactful than healing damage, because oftentimes that reduction means you survive a hit, whereas the heal effect is really helping you survive a 2-hit KO type thing anyway. So usually reduction is better than heal, but this is across the entire board, so it can be nice at preventing like Inteleon ping setup plays and stuff like that, so maybe a small nod there, but nothing too crazy. We have Zarude, allowing you to bring stuff up and deal damage to him for 1 grass, and flipping 3 coins, 70x each head. It's probably not as good as the Zarude we have already for GLC. We have a Grass Basic Calyrex for that's a Grass type with 110 hit points and a 2 retreat cost. It has King's Command for 2 colorless. You can search your deck for up to 2 cards and put them into your hand if you do shuffle your deck. And then the second attack for Grass 2 colors is 90 and heal 20 from each of your Pokemon. I actually think this has potential for GLC just for that first attack, because Grass is often stage 2 based, so having something that can just scout 2 cards immediately into hand on like a Twin Energy or a DCE or something seems reasonable to me. So yeah, I think already Grass is spoilt for a good number of basics, but this is like not the worst one to have if you want to get set up. Kind of cool. We have an Arcanine line, which has amazing artwork. Freaking love Arcanine. One of my favorite species of Pokemon anyway. And yeah, we get this guy, but he is very bad, unfortunately. We have an Entei, which is really weird because, again, the artwork is insane on this card. It's a 120 hit point with 2 retreats. It's been given an ability that allows it to have no retreat if it has Fire Energy attached, and then it just does a vanilla 90 for 3 colorless. It's very strange. They were like, can we be bothered to do anything with this card? Yeah, sure, let's give it an ability, and then like they gave up thinking they couldn't be bothered to actually give us something relevant. So yeah. Reshiram V, 220 hit points, fire type with 2 retreats. You have Gleaming Wings for fire. You can search your deck for up to 2 basic energy and attach them to one of your Pokemon in play. Acceleration from the deck is obviously very strong, just on 1 fire, not bad either. Obviously we're feeling a little bit subpar compared to a Trinity Charge or Nova though. And then we have White Blast for fire colorless. You do 200, flip a coin of tails. You can't attack during your next turn. Yeah, nothing to really write home about. We have a Fennekin that can search for supporters, which is an upgrade for my cube, and Delphox is already an interesting line. We also get some good artwork on Breaksons, which is also welcome for my cube, so I will take it. And then we have a Delphox, 150 hit points, stage 2, with 2 retreats. You have Flare Parade for a colorless. You do 60x each Serena you have in your discard pile, and Serena's the supporter that allows you to discard a number and then draw X, and then it also has the gust effect on a V. It's a real shame because I would like this card to be in the cube, but the Serena doesn't make sense in the cube. And then you have Energy Crush doing 50x for each energy your opponent has in play for 2 colorless. Pretty strong card actually. Overall, that damage modifier good if you're thinking about GLC or something like that, but I think Delphox has already got better options with the draw side of things if you want to go down that route. We have a Volk, really not doing much. 160 is a good amount to deal with the Hydro Burn if you have water attached for GLC or something like that, but I don't think it's a direction Fire necessarily needs. We have a Call for Family Salander. I think we already had one of them, but yeah, this could be an upgrade for a GLC format. And then we have a Salazzle that's really not doing much, some status stuff. We have another V-Star here. We have a Lowen Vulpix V. 190 hit points on the basic with 1 retreat. And we have a no energy attack cost Snow White drop that does 10. And if your opponent's active is a V, you do 50 more. So just a free 60 damage. A little bit of poke damage that can maybe get you in range with some other attackers. And you also have Frost Smash for water and 2 colourless, 110. Nothing to write home about. The V-Star is interesting though. 240 hit points is pretty low for a V-Star, and I think that's really the limiting factor here when you read the card. Snow Mirage for water 2 colours is 160, and this damage isn't... or it gets through all effects of your opponent's active Pokemon, so that's nice. It's a wall-breaking effect. And then you also have, during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon from Pokemon with abilities. So, first of all, you wall break, which is nice. It means maybe we can see some Palkia or Ice Rider archetypes that don't require the Inteleon engine, because you could have like a 1-1 Vulpix line and suddenly you have something that can get through all effects with 160 damage as well. That's a good amount to get through other 1 prizes as well as Miltank as well, so that just seems reasonable. And you prevent all damage done to from Pokemon with abilities, which is a huge chunk of Pokemon in the format. Like, obviously Palkia and Arceus are ruling the format right now, and you can stay out of range of both of those guys. The thing I would say, though, 240 hit points is very low, right? You're still going to get hit by a ton of stuff. Arceus is normally powering up other dudes, and obviously if they're aware of Vulpix in the format, they might factor in some dudes that don't have abilities, of course, or they can just path to the peak themselves. And so can Palkia. Palkia already plays 1 path, so they can path and just 1-shot straight through you, which is a little bit awkward, I guess. And even Palkia can just use the regular V to attack with if they want to, and use like Intel Pings and Belt and Zig to still get the KO. So not like the most annoying wall that we have currently, but a bit of interesting text. I actually like the first part that wall breaks more than the slightly annoying ability that it has, like secondary effect on the attack. And then we have Silver Snow Star for no energy whatsoever, also pretty appealing. You do 70 times the number of your opponent's Pokemon V, so this could be punishing for maybe some Mew players, something like that. I kind of like this card maybe in like an Ice Rider, where you have this V-Star attack option that can help you in Mew, which is like one of your harder matchups. So maybe something there, but I think it's a little bit subpar. The hit points really is the big limiting factor here for this card, both on the basic and the evolution. Have an Articuno, not doing much. It can paralyze, but who really cares? We have even bigger whales for GLC. You have 220 hit points. This is getting silly. And you do 80 heal 30, which is good enough to get you through some smaller things, especially in GLC, which is nice, whilst trying to stay out of range of a 2-hit KO. And you have a vanilla 180 with no downside. I mean, it's expensive, but it's just smack, smack, smack. So maybe some Frosty Box wants to have this big whale in the mix. We have awesome artwork on this Feebas. Look at him! And it can also search for something that evolves straight into it, so that could be cool for Cube. I'm up for it. I'm also a fan of the Milotic, 130 hit point stage 1. You can do 50 for 1 water, which is good pressure in Cube, and 60 in sleep as well, so pretty ideal actually for my sort of mid-high power Cube. So yeah, I'm a fan of that guy. We have a Love Disc, not doing too much. Kyogre also pretty underwhelming. We have a Radiant Alakazam, of course. They're not allowed to print Kadabra cards, but we do have a Zam here. 130 hit points, Psychic type, basic, that has 2 retreats. It has the ability Spoonful of Pain, which I really hope it's actually translated into this. Once during your turn, you may move up to 2 damage counters from one of your opponent's Pokemon to another of their Pokemon. So I think this is really beneficial for decks that have attackers that are looking to 2-hit KO like the entire time, because you can try and spoonful chip damage that's like irrelevant. Like, you're easily 2-shotting stuff, and you can just like spoonful here, spoonful there, to set up damage elsewhere. And don't forget, you can also net this card, of course, for a small period of time, and it could actually end up similar to Radiant Blastoise, where you can spoonful a few times just to knock out like a Sobble or something, and still finish off the active Pokemon. So you can take advantage of some big 2-shot Pokemon, and you can spoonful around the board, which I think is really cool, actually. So there's definitely potential for this card. Moving counters is always a very cheeky thing to do, and on a basic, it's very powerful, I think. And then we have Mind Ruler. For Psychic Colorless, you do 20 for each card in your opponent's hand. Again, your opponent's obviously in control of this, but maybe with like a sneaky Raihan or something in the deck, you can catch someone unaware. But I don't think it's really in here for the attack. I think you're just going to be netting and spoonfulling people, but I think it's got a lot of potential, to be honest. You know, how often have we seen Headbutt Tantrum being vital. How often have we seen Inteleon quick shooting being vital for certain breakpoints of math? I think the deck has to be pretty specific for this, where you're naturally looking in that 2-hit KO range of most things. But you can spoonful here or there to reach a one-shot at one point in the game, or take out like a free one-prizer like sitting around the board, which could also be pretty powerful. We have busted artwork for Execute. This is so sick. I really like the storyline that's going on here. Trying to cross the bridge. And we also have an Executor that does 20 times the amount of energy attached to all of your Pokemon. I don't know if there's a way to abuse this in GLC. Sounds like you could, though. 20x isn't a big multiplier, but I'm sure there are ways you can get lots of Psychic Energy into play. So maybe there's something there as a Stage 1 play. We have a basic Jinx again. Amazing Kamiya artwork. We're getting spoilt so much by Kamiya art, and I believe they've already done a Jinx in the past, but it's been a while, so we get a new Jinx from Kamiya. It's a 100 hit point basic that has Selfish Lips. If this Pokemon is knocked out by damage from your opponent's Pokemon V's attack, your opponent doesn't take a prize card. So it's very similar to a Trevenant that were coming out in Lost Origin. I actually much prefer this text actually to like Miltank's text, where it just says it can't be damaged by V's. I think that's just like really boring text, and the Pokemon TCG has then since had like so many Pokemon that just wall break anyway, just so they sort of undo the mistake of them actually printing a Miltank. Whereas if you have Selfish Lips, you're like affecting a prize race, but you're not completely being walled out of the game by one basic Pokemon that anyone could put into their deck. And Jinx has a fully colorless attack cost, so it could be that card if it was another Miltank, basically. But here you're just like saying, yeah, it's annoying, but it's not going to completely win the game by putting one basic in the deck. And we have to water down all of our decks throughout the entire remainder of the format because it exists. So I much prefer this text to Miltank overall. So love to see it. Its attack is for 2 colorless psi damage, 10 plus 10 more for each damage counter on your opponent's active. So similar to old Wobbuffet, I guess you could think about. I think it does the job very nicely at, again, setting up for decks that can 2-hit KO things. Looking at like Arceus, when you're not hitting for weakness, you can attack with your Arceus, then retreat out into this Jinx, and just attach that DTE and still 2-hit KO, most likely, with the damage that you're, even after the reduction. So yeah, it does the job, forces Gust from an opponent, which is really nice if they want to keep up in a prize race. So I think there's definitely a home for this card. I think it's pretty solid. We have a Mewtwo, not really good for anything if your opponent has 3 or few prizes remaining. Okay, so that's very strong actually for GLC. Mewtwo is good in GLC anyway, though, because it has the supporter recovery one. But that damage output for a basic in like a Mali deck seems pretty powerful. Or if you have, what's it called? Shining Arcana, is it called, from the Gardevoir that can also accelerate psychic stuff? Yeah, there's potential there, because 180 is a big chunk, and I think the Mali deck is really good at doing intricate damage counters, but doesn't have enough like straight one-hit KO, and adding this Mewtwo for the late game would be really nice at getting through some higher hit point stuff. Rolt's line is also very cool. Great artwork on the little guy, but we have an awesome Curlier. This is the return of Level Ball Trade. So we have had trade in a lot of ways now. Obviously, it's Cinccino's still in format, and we thought Lipard would be the successor, but Curlier could end up being that successor. It has 80 hit points, so it's levelable, searchable. It does have that annoying 2 retreat cost, but it has the ability Refine. You can discard a card from hand, then draw 2. So it's actually a much more searchable Lipard, really. And there's even bigger upsides to Curlier, because there's also a Curlier that has water duplicates in format. So you could play a 1-3 split of Curlier and try and get a deck where you just use the attack of one of your Curliers to then get 3 of your trade mons into play, which I think would be really cool. And it cheats a lot of space, right? You could play like 2 Rolts, 1... and then like a 1-3 split of your Curliers, and then get the whole gang out, which is really cool. So big upside here, and obviously very good for GLC and for Cube, because Gardevoir is a blessed evolution line, as is the Gallade, very strong in GLC. Then we have 2 great artworks. Even the half heart looks amazing for this Gardevoir. The full art, of course, is incredible. 150 hit point stage 2. It also has the trade ability called Refine, which is insane, and the attack is just for a Psychic and colorless 120. So this is going straight into my cube, because I love the Gardevoir line, and this only hits 120, which is a good enough breakpoint for me. So love seeing it. Amazing card. It may be the best of Guardy that we have for GLC. It's kind of close because this ability is very good, but so is the Shining Arcana, because every now and then you can get the extra energy acceleration. So yeah, got to think about that one. Then we have a Mawile V-Star, which I'm a pretty big fan of, actually. The basic is 200 hit points with 1 retreat cost, Psychic type. You have Sullen Slap for a Psychic, 30 flip a coin if head to discard an energy. That can be annoying here and there. And you have Bite Off for 3 colours. You do 100 and discard a card from your opponent's hand at random. Again, a little bit annoying, but not setting the world alight. The V-Star, though, is very cool. 260 again, definitely on that lower side of things, but it has the Sudden Eater attack for 2 colourless. You deal 90 damage, and if this Pokemon moves from the bench to the active, this turn you deal 90 more. So it's like a Gale Thrust style attack from Urshifu, but it's a 90-90 split, which is way more kind than like a 30 plus 150 split or whatever, right? 30 plus 120, I should say. So, yeah, Sudden Eater, very good. Having a colourless Psychic type Mom that can reach 180 is something that we've greatly lacked in this format. It's been one of the reasons why Urshifu's kept up in the format for so long. Obviously, we've been living in fear of Mew at times, and Urshi had to like tech heavily for dark stuff. But this being a 2-prize threat that's colourless, that can be splashed into stuff, is insane. Like an Arceus could really use with this card, so that you have an easier time against Urshifu and don't just get railed by it. Or even Hisuian Decidueye V-Star, which just won Worlds. So having some counterplay to that seems very good in a colourless form, which is awesome. And that's before we even get to the ability Star Rondo. During your turn, if this Pokemon is on the bench, you may use this V-Star power, switch this Pokemon with your active, then switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active as well. So it's a Guzma effect, essentially. You pole vault the Mawile into the active, which then triggers the Sudden Eater while selecting something on their bench. Again, great synergy with knocking out Fish and Bat, obviously, but also very good at just finishing things off that you've been eyeing up for a 2-hit KO. I think this competes a little bit with Leafeon V-Star, which hasn't seen a whole lot of play despite the Leafeon V being strong. That might be changing with Giratina actually coming out, so we might finally start seeing some Leafeon on a side note. But I think the Mawile, it has to trigger itself, which makes it a bit more limited than the Leafeon in some ways. Because I think the Mawile is a good enough attacker anyway, I think it could certainly see some play. And we have been lacking this colourless option in the Psychic department. To cover some key weaknesses. So I do like this more. While it may be limited in its uses, but there's a lot of power here to look at. And yeah, it's additional Gust, which you can't ever write off. We have a Meowstick, a 90 hit points Pokemon, definitely relevant. For that search ability, it has Beckoning Ears. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve, during a turn you may search your deck for 2 supporters and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. I really like this for GLC, because there's obviously the good Esper that can do the... I can't remember what it's called, but there's a decent Esper for sure. And Meowstick, just being a searchable Stage 1, getting supports out is pretty strong here, especially because everything is like one-ofs in your deck, so just having more searchability is very good. Could be a decent enough card actually in Standard as just like a net option with Control, I think, possibly. For cherry-picking key supporter cards here and there. Just a decent card, honestly. I don't think it ever overtakes the likes of Bibarel, Cincino, and Inteleon, of course, while they're still here, because they're just far more flexible, but getting lots of supporters, like even Altaria's not seeing any play, despite how good that ability is, and this is just a once per turn, once you come into play use, so even though the effect seems powerful on paper, there's a lot of reason for me to think it won't see play for a little while in Standard, unfortunately. But getting 2 supporters is obviously good value. We have a Lele. It's a Psychic Basic with 110 hit points. Does 20 for each energy attached to both active. And Spiral Drain 100 and Heal 30. Not too much to say there. We have a Scizor. Not doing too much, unfortunately. Probably too powerful for Cube. If your opponent's active is a basic 80 more. Maybe it's not too powerful for Cube. This could be a way that a Cube builder could keep in check big basics. And I'm always looking for ways to do that, because if they're not kept in check, I will build big basics and win with them every time. We have a Radiant Jirachi that has 90 hit points. It's a Metal type, and it has the Pass a Wish ability. If this Pokemon is knocked out by damage from your opponent's attacks, search your deck for up to 3 cards and put them straight into your hand. Pretty interesting text there, of course. The annoying thing is there's not much to do proactively with this card. It has Stellar Doom for 2 colorless. You flip 2 coins if both heads your opponent's active is knocked out. Now, maybe there's an argument that we try a Glimwood Tangle Radiant Jirachi deck where every turn you try and recover this guy with like as long as Pass a Wish is online, you can guarantee that you like recover Jirachi, put it back into play, get your next like Twin Energy or Double Turbo or whatever, put it back onto the Jirachi, get your next Glimwood Tangle and try again. Definitely a meme deck potential there. Obviously it does get shut off by Path, which is a bit of a headache. But I don't think in general, like, stalling decks want this card. Even though it's a good card to just throw in the active position and say Pass and force Gust from people, you'd rather probably use Eevee or Snorlax or one of the other Pokemon, so I don't think this sees a whole lot of play outside of a Glimwood Tangle meme deck where you're hoping to Pass a Wish every turn to recycle the Jirachi, basically. Sounds like content to me. We have a Clink Clan and Clink Clan, the stage 2. When you evolve, you can search your deck for 3 basic energy and attach them to your Pokemon in any way that you like. This is very powerful acceleration. 3 basic energy out of the deck is really, really good, actually. And it's any way you like. This is actually very flexible. Not a bad card, honestly. We're kind of blessed right now with Energy Excel. We have Palkia and we have Arceus, so nothing's like springing to mind for me to be like, oh, finally we can power this guy up, because Arceus can do that so easily. But Clink Clan actually has an interesting ability. Like this is definitely better than like the Blastoise and the Magnezone that we've had in recent times. So low key, not bad. Not even a bad card. Crazy. It is a coming into play effect though, which means it's limited in its usage. It's kind of like a burst effect rather than something you'll do throughout the game and accumulate value. So just a small thing there. We have a Pawniard. This has 70 hit points. Is this the best one we have for the Bog deck? Possibly. I think we might already have a 70 hit point one. We have a Bishop, which may be going into my all basics cube. We'll see. We have a Zacian that does 20 plus 10 more for each of your benched Pokemon. Not really good enough. And then 100 for 3. I think there's better stuff for GLC. I think the Samazenta is very good for GLC, though. It's 130 hit point basic that has Metal Shield, reduces 30 damage from attacks as long as there's an energy attached to this guy. And Revenge for Metal colors does 100, and if any of your Pokemon were knocked out during your last turn, 120 more damage. That is insane! We're starting to get some real beasts in GLC. Something that can hit 220 is nutty, with this reduction as well. And obviously we have Bronzong for acceleration and Saucer. Yeah, the Samazenta very, very good. We have a Magina V, 210 hit point Metal type basic. With Gear Throw, you can just do 30 to one of your opponent's Pokemon, and Special Laser for Metal colorless does 100. If you have any special energy attached, you deal 120 more. It's pretty much just a carbon copy of the Necrozma that we have that has seen no play. That's a Psychic type. I don't really see a reason for this card to see any play either. We have the Ho-Oh V, 230 hit points, basic colorless type. The colorless typing is so weird. For 2 colorless energy retreat as well. I'm all over the place. Anyway, the ability is Rebirth Flames. Once during a turn, if this card is in your discard pile, you may put this card directly onto your bench, and if you do, attach 4 basic energy from your discard pile to this Pokemon. If you use this ability, your turn ends. So it's potentially a real great way to get a ton of energy into play all in one go. You can get an attacker powered up, and you can end your turn with a real big threat on board. The Rainbow Burn for 4 colorless does 130 more for each type of basic energy attached to this Pokemon as well. So possibly we have this like trekking shoe research, what's it called? Pokestop style discard deck where you try and motor through as quickly as possible to get a Ho-Oh and a ton of different flavors of energy rooting around straight into the bin and get this guy rolling. But because this end of turn text, it means you can really only play like 1 Ho-Oh, and it has to be early because you can't really afford to do it in the mid to late game because ending your turn is terrible. So you need other attackers around this card if it's ever going to be good. Or the other alternative is you completely forget Rainbow Burn, and you just go for all one flavor of energy, and just let your Ho-Oh from then on during the game be a card that you like E-switch off of, or use Bronzong to move a ton of metal energy off onto other things. So maybe there's something here where this is just like a wild card acceleration for some sort of deck that you can then use the energy from Ho-Oh, turn it into a better attacker, you know? There's even the Thornton card, right, as well, that lets you change stuff with basics. So maybe there's some combo synergy with the Ho-Oh as well. Definitely interesting text. Definitely is going to be in a deck that likes to cycle a lot and get a lot of things in the discard pile early, so that you can use the Ho-Oh on turn 1. Because I think if you're doing this on any other turn of the game, it feels terrible. So, yeah. We have an Altaria, which is also pretty interesting. Again, great art. Some of these trainer gallery artwork cards are just insane. It's a 110 hit point stage 1, colorless type that has Magical Echo. For 2 colorless, you can move all damage counters from one of your benched Pokemon to your opponent's active Pokemon. Actually a pretty reasonable card, and I was just saying that Altaria hasn't seen a ton of play. Maybe there is more and more merit to seeing a 2-1-1 split of an Altaria in certain decks, because we do know that obviously the Dragon-type Altaria, putting supporters on top of the deck is very good, and this potential like double turbo synergy that you could have with Altaria can give you some healing. Like, how often have we seen Sharon's Care being vital to Arceus decks? You can easily use this Altaria in a similar vein, where you can tank a hit, and you can then just attach a Twin Energy and you bounce it right back onto the opponent. It can be very disruptive, and yeah, I think this is probably a good card for a deck that can tank. So yeah, all counters, all of them. That's like the amount of VMAXs that can get to like 360 hit points and have basically no weakness and stuff. Oh, it's scary. Like, that's a lot of counters you can heal. Obviously, your opponent then starts going for like little chip damage pokes and stuff, and this gets way less effective. But if they go for a big chip damage or whatever, or sorry, a small bit of chip damage, then you can just attack with the thing that you were healing in the first place. So, actually a scary card. It's weird, because if they're hitting into a VMAX, you basically only gain 0.5 a prize of tempo, because you could just continue attacking with your 3-prizer, I guess. But I think sometimes 0.5 of a prize is enough to swing you ahead in the game, especially because it leaves a 1-prizer in the active for your opponent to then have the extra headache of bringing back the thing you just healed. So, yeah. Long story short, I like Altaria. I like this species as well, because it means you get to play the Dragon-type Altaria, so something there for sure. We have a 70 hit point basic Smeargle that allows you to look at the top 5 cards of your deck and attach any number of basic energy you find there to one of your Pokemon. Any number of basic energy. Interesting. There may be some GLC random acceleration thing you could do with this Smeargle. Try and power up some Snorlaxes or Kangaskhan's or something like that. Then we have a Chatot with 3 retreats, 70 hit points, and not good enough. So for competitive, we got Serena, which is huge. We got Furisode Girl, which is maybe okay. We got V-Guard Energy, which I think is certainly impactful. And then we got Altaria, which is a maybe. Ho-Oh has combo potential. And is there anything else? I do like the Mawile, but again, bit part player. I think we mostly just got like bits and pieces. Like the Zam is kind of cool. It's really just like, because this is a small set, there's actually not that much that's that impactful. The more I think about the Vulpix, the less I like it, actually. So yeah, really nothing too crazy in terms of standard format. I think it's really bits and bobs. But this is just the small side of things anyway, so don't be too worried. There's still time for Silver Tempest to be very good. We haven't yet seen this guy, so that could definitely be good. And there's more Reggies to be had, apparently, as well. So from the pack artwork, we know that there's more to come from Paradigm Trigger coming soon. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on GLC, Cube format, and the standard format for these cards. What did you like the artwork of most? What would you like to start testing out in any of those respective formats? I will hear it all down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video tomorrow. Cheers.